Mark, thanks so much for being with us tonight. We're delighted to have you on Justice for the first time. Let's go right to the quick here. Under the Constitution, you say that the president cannot be indicted. So what is the point of all that's been going on with Mueller and his team?
First of all, it's an honor to be with you. You're a great lawyer.
Thank you.
A couple of things here on the constitutional level. No, Mueller cannot on his own indict a sitting president. I've talked about this for 18 months, so now even the professors who show up on Fox comprehend what I'm talking about. That's the position of the Department of Justice in their two memos. It's always been their position. So the question is now, can they subpoena the president? Well, they can subpoena whomever they want. The issue is, how does the president respond to a subpoena? And the president should respond to the subpoena depending on what the subpoena says. If the subpoena seeks information from the president, either in person or otherwise, that raises questions about presidential prerogatives, he must not reply. A prosecutor appointed by a deputy attorney general as acting attorney general and is a subordinate to the president doesn't get to question the president's prerogatives and the president exercising those prerogatives, and that's why that cannot be obstruction of justice. Judge, think for a second. If the opposite were the case, then a president can be hit time and time and time again with threats of charges against him for obstruction because he fires somebody. So you would have an FBI director who could theoretically, politically blackmail the president of the United States if he even thinks about firing him, or a CIA director, anybody of the sort.
Well, I believe that that's already going on because Jim Comey was the head of the FBI. If there was a problem, he could have started an investigation. He gets fired and then decides he needs to leak and get an investigation, get things out in the public square. But if Mueller were to subpoena, to what end is the subpoena?
To no end. Mueller has nothing, and he wants to get something. He thinks the president is Martha Stewart. He's not Martha Stewart. He's president of the United States. Now, I want to make this clear. Mr. Mueller is nothing but a single prosecutor. We have thousands of prosecutors in this country. We have one president of the United States. He ran against 16 or 17 other Republicans in primaries. People came out in various states and voted for him. He participated in debates. He participated in the electoral process. He went through the general election. He won the general election. The American people knew who they were voting for. He won fair and square through our Constitution. You cannot have a single prosecutor accountable to no one, elected by nobody, having the power to take down a sitting president of the United States.
Okay, but
that's the bottom line.
It's even worse than that. With all due respect, what they're looking at are the actions that President Trump took while he was in office. Given you cannot indict a president, and given that they're looking at things he did as president, that means that every time the opposing party feels like it, if they can get somebody in the Justice Department to say, we need to investigate the president for doing this, I mean, it's nonsense. There's no end. You subpoena what for? So that they can create an impeachment document? This is lunacy. Should the president fire Mueller?
Well, I wouldn't fire him right now. I mean, I think he has Mueller on the ropes, believe it or not. The president wraps himself in his constitutional prerogatives, and he dukes it out. And the fact is that Mr. Mueller shouldn't be issuing any subpoenas. If he really wants questions answered by the president to fill gaps in his massive investigation of nothing, then that's one thing. But he doesn't have that. So what we have here, which is different than every other case that a president's been involved in, as far as I know, we have this broad effort to ask broad questions to try and catch a president that may disagree with one of the 450,000 witnesses that Mr. Mueller's already interviewed. That's not how this works. That's not how it's ever worked in the past. They're supposed to be very, very narrow, related to some conduct of the president of the United States. There's been no conduct of the president of the United States that merits any criminal investigation. You want to know how I know that, Judge? Because when Mr. Mueller was appointed, there was no criminal statute that was cited by Mr. Rosenstein in his appointment in the first place.
Well, you know, Rosenstein is another one that apparently there were some members of Congress wanted to impeach. Paul Ryan leadership wouldn't let them go forward with it. I mean, it's almost as though the establishment is in line with the Democrats based on a false dossier paid for by Hillary Clinton. She's at the genesis of all of this. But let me ask you this. You and I both know that the president And we both know he does want to talk. And it's every lawyer around him who's saying this shouldn't be done, not just because we want you to or we don't, but constitutionally it shouldn't be done. What do you think the president's base wants here?
I think his political base wants the president of the United States to fire everybody, but he better not do that.
Why?
Because I think because every Democrat in the House and a third of the Republicans in the Senate will vote to impeach him. What's the point of that? When I think he can win it, duking it out through the system. Now, if it comes to the point where he needs to fire people, then by God, he has the right to fire people. But we're talking about the political outcome. So I don't think it's wise for the president of the United States to start firing all these people.